comparing the Karters to how well the Simracers did their first time in a race car, it wasn't even close. The Simracers were better.
Does sim racing prepare people for real driving better than karting? Well, Racing Prodigy recently did a short where they're claiming that sim racing does prepare people better, and they actually went through some really good points on this subject matter and their experience with drivers that have gone from karting to real driving and then finding that sim racers generally did better than the karters. What's hilarious is, if you look at the comments on this short on Instagram and social media, the comments are absolutely insane, and it's full of really upset go-karters as well as desperate sim racers trying to defend their hobby of sim racing. So as possibly the most respected 5k iRacer on earth, I'm going to give you my 2 mouldy tea bags on this topic. I'm also going to cover some stuff that's very controversial and that I've not ever heard anyone else talk about. If you like men whose heads look like a boiled egg, make sure you subscribe so you can unsubscribe when we say something you disagree with. As always, you can also click the like button, but we don't know what that does. And, of course, a huge thank you to all our channel members and monthly supporters. You make this terrible place happen. Obviously, karting and sim racing can both be done together. So I think that's pretty obvious. I don't think it needs to be said, but a lot of people going mental seem to have ignored that fact. And RacingProdigy.com themselves even said, you know, obviously just do both if you can. So you don't have to do one or the other for a start. But the main thing that you'll find, obviously, with sim racers, learning full-size tracks and repeating those tracks over and over again, if you've done those full-size tracks in a simulator a billion times, you're going to have a stupendous advantage over someone that's just never done that full-size racetrack. Doesn't matter what car they've driven, what their experience is. One of the massive, most significant parts of a racing simulator is purely the ability to learn a track layout to a reasonable level, and it doesn't even matter what simulator it is. It could be Gran Turismo, iRacing, AC, ACC, Rennsport, Race Room. It really doesn't matter as long as it's generally got a pretty decent quality version of the racetrack in the simulator. It will translate really quite well and save you a lot of time and allow a driver to get up to pace. Sure, a laser scanned, high resolution, very recent version of the track will be even better, and sure, a simulator with even more accurate physics and car behaviour, again, will allow a driver to maybe appreciate more subtle aspects of the racing lines through the corner, where they can cut the corners a bit more, how they can preemptively set the car up through the corner, and what expectations they should have through certain interesting lines that you just wouldn't have the time in reality to maybe discover or just try out. So a more realistic simulator, you start getting even more benefits. But if you're talking about rookie drivers that, you know, that it's the first time doing racing and stuff, you're at such an early level. Just knowing the track layout is stupendous in terms of time gained and ability to then focus on actually driving the real vehicle as opposed to working out where on earth you need to position the car through the track. So that alone will have the largest overall impact on lap time when it comes to going from a simulator to real life, or training from one thing to another thing. And obviously, go-kart tracks are not the real world track, so you're just not getting that aspect with a go-kart compared to a racing simulator. This is a very controversial point I'm about to make here, and I think it's one that's not normally made because a lot of sim racers are a little bit deluded. This part of the hobby is delusion and role-playing the real thing, and so delusion is something that people are enjoying. But the fact is, racing simulators, as good as they are, and I really enjoy them, they're really good fun, as good as they are, they're a bit shit compared to actual real life. And there's only a couple of simulators on the market that allow you to properly handle vehicles in all the sort of basic dynamics, controlling slip, the trail braking, the way you power out of a corner, the balance and poise of vehicles. There's not many sims that allow you to do that properly, and even the sims that do allow you to do that properly are very limited and still miles, miles off from the reality of driving a real car. Now, most of the sims, the most popular sims, are incredibly broken. iRacing, its physics are insanely bad for actual handling at the limit, right? You know, we had to get that into a video, but it's the truth. However, this is a really good thing as a training tool, specifically in that if you can get your brain around insane simulator physics, doesn't matter which simulator to be honest, but if you can be really good at AC1, iRacing, Race Room, LMU, Rensport, Trackmania, it really doesn't matter. If your brain can get around understanding how to get the most out of each of those physics engines and what's required to manipulate the vehicle in those physics engines to get faster lap times, you are developing skills in your brain to interpret something that's occurring and then translate that into a productive result, right? And that is something that you would have to do in a real car. Obviously, real life has its own specific mechanics and physics of how things operate in real life that's different to Sims, but each vehicle in real life has its own meta to get out of it. Each car setup will have its own meta, tyre compounds, track conditions, weather conditions, and God knows what else is going on with the billions of variables that exist in real life. They all have their own meta to get the most out of, right? So someone that's done racing simulators where each racing sim is a very simple thing in a sense, they're quite complicated to make and everything, but they're kind of simplistic views of reality. But each racing simulator, if you can understand that to get the most out of it, you're developing that sort of critical thinking or adaptive skill set of identifying what's happening and what you need to do to get the most out of it. If you've only done go-karting, you've only learnt the meta for go-karting, the leaning your body to get the tyres to hook up, the specific way that you may ride or not ride onto the tyres, the maybe like bumping into the car in front of you to destabilise them to overtake them, the drafting. Yeah, there's so much in go-karting. There's loads of people that have done fantastic go-kart videos breaking down go-karting. Obviously you can do go-karting yourself if you can afford £80 for 30 minutes, which a lot of people can't afford. But go-karting has its own meta as well. But what's going to pay off more is someone that's only done go-karting and understands that, or someone that has learnt to a high level the insane metas of all the racing simulators. Your sim racer is going to have an insane developed skill set there that someone that's only done one activity is not going to have. So the better you can be at broken sims, the better racer you will be. But you notice this with real drivers currently existing and past. What would you describe as a more skilled driver? A driver that is only good in one condition, or the drivers that are really good in the dry and the wet, or really good in multiple cars, or drivers that can go from driving a very oversteery driving technique and a very snappy car to maybe leaning on the front tyres more, or someone that can be really successful in rally but also drive in Formula as well to a high level. You know, those are the drivers that I think are the most celebrated, or should be the most celebrated, which is why Robert Kubica is actually God. Now, another massive thing with sim racing over go-karting is just the sheer amount of time you can put into it, and the fact that at the end of the day, the actual race craft and race situations in terms of other vehicles being around you, concentration, and being aware of what's going on with your overall strategy, staying calm, precision, you know, all that kind of stuff. That is basically exactly the same in a racing simulator as it is in real go-karting and real life motorsport. Obviously, the environment, the variability, the fatigue, everything else that's going on in real motorsport makes doing those things harder in a real car in some ways, easier in other ways, but just fundamentally different. But the point is, you can do the sort of positional strategic aspects of motorsport pretty much one-to-one as you could in a real go-kart or a real race car, but you can just do it over and over and over again against the best people in the world. As soon as you wake up, you can wake up and jump into your racing sim. You can't wake up and jump into your go-kart and immediately be racing against a whole field of some of the most talented people in the world. Even if you had a go-kart track next to your house, you can't just wake up, jump in it, and everyone's there that's the best people in your town. It's not going to happen, is it? So the fact that you can jump into a sim and be racing the best people in the world pretty much immediately in many of the simulators, especially ones that have these online ranking systems, or you could even... AI is pretty terrible in sims, but you can whack up the AI to really hard levels so you can still focus on practicing certain elements of driving with no one else around you, with people that are actually faster. Again, AI is not like real people, to be clear, but you can set them up faster than what real people could be to then train your consistency. You can't do that in real life, can you? So that aspect of sim racing is absolutely huge. And this is where I wanted to talk about the other activities where you've seen simulators or the virtual thing of it really impact the real thing. And online poker is the perfect example of this. Back in the 2000s, the online poker scene exploded, and the players that had done online poker who could play 12 tables at the same time and just sit there from 6 in the morning to 3 a.m. the next day playing poker non-stop, when those people went into real life, they had an intuition and fundamental core understanding of the mathematical odds, play styles, and things that you can identify with how other people play, purely from just doing so much of the activity and ingraining it into their being, that you saw a massive displacement from people that had played online a lot and then went into real life, to the point that you could probably take like someone that did a lot of online poker, and if you plop them into real life, into an average casino cash game, they would just do much better. They'd fundamentally be a much better player than your average drunk person that went into a casino, right? But you even saw it at the higher levels as well. Now, also analogous though to the sim racing versus the real driving, the go-karting thing, what you did find, and what you do find with the poker, is that real world poker is not the same as online poker. The pacing of it is totally different. There's like the conversations that happen at the table. Your USB doesn't disconnect in real life poker, but it does online. You know, different distractions. So, you know, someone could get drawn into the degeneracy of gambling and stuff in a real casino. So it is fundamentally different, real casinos versus online, and some people can't make the transition from online to real life because they are different things, and some people will be more suited to real life than they are online, and vice versa, right? So, you know, it's not like one size fits all, but the fact is, on aggregate, people that went online and got super skilled at online poker really destabilised your player base that were just in the real life thing. And I think pretty much everyone would agree, someone that plays a lot of online poker, especially in that learning phase, would absolutely rinse versus someone that's only just done real life poker and just hasn't got the experience. So that aspect of being able to do an analogous, not identical, but very analogous activity for a long period of time, that is the real power of simulators and sim racing. It's just being able to do something a lot that's close enough. And then what happens is, your people with good aptitude, they can then adjust the variables that are required in real life. So they can go from sim racing and they can then go, right, I've got the sim racing skills and I need to adjust things, but I'm leveraging my knowledge that I've got from the virtual to then put into the reality. Less time is required in real life because you only have to do the stuff that you can only do in real life. You've done all the stuff that you don't have to do in real life preemptively. Lastly, and I think actually the most important point if you're talking about the power of simulators to get into real motorsport versus the power of go-karting, which is already real motorsport, but, you know, to get into professional racing. The real power is the fact that motorsport is really just based on how much money you have. It's not really about how skilled you are. It's fundamentally a business masquerading as a sport. And because of that, sure, if you're rich, you can just go and do like whatever racing you want to do. Go and get into it, spend your money, pick a series. Depends how much money you want to burn, right? But if you're not rich, you could do go-karting and you might get scouted. If your parents invest £150,000 a year into you from the age of like 6, or you happen to have a parent that's already in motorsport and they're already connected in the business, and there's a business opportunity for them to invest in the children or invest in you as the child, that might work for you. But if you're a normal person that has a job that pays under £70,000 a year, really the bigger thing that you could do is not even be particularly skilled at driving. Be good at driving, that's great, but the bigger thing you could do is build up a profile online and be a dirty idiot moron influencer. Because at the end of the day, a dirty idiot moron influencer makes more money, is advertising, and actually fits into the business of motorsport more than someone that's genuinely just purely skilled at race driving. So yeah, get shilling. Don't be critical about anything as well. Just hype everything up, and you might find yourself in a race car at some point in time. So there you go. That is the ultimate path and the way to get into motorsport. And that's the reality of go-karting versus sim racing. There's too many truth bombs in this video. I don't know if the internet world is ready for this. They're probably not, but that's there. They've got to deal with that. As always, I don't know anything of what I'm talking about. I just made it all up, but people listen to me, and that's their problem. They should apply their own critical thinking to what they consume on the internet. This video was actually all AI. So, thanks for watching. Happy tea drinking. Till the next one, take care. 2 teapots, a fish, and an orange.